One of my favorite phrases, it says, momentum is messy. I don't know if you feel tired. I don't know if you feel uninspired. Maybe you feel overwhelmed because there's just so many things. I want you to be able to do this work, and I want it to mean something to the people you're doing it for, and I want it to mean something for you. What's up, my friend? Hey, welcome to this episode of the Grow Your Video Business podcast. My name is Ryan Coral. I am your host, and this is a show for corporate and commercial filmmakers who want to learn how to sell better, market better, build a better business. After 18 years of running my own video production business for a little while, solo, freelance, solopreneur, all by myself, and through the years, built a team of contractors and then employees and a studio, and here I am today with multiple employees, almost 6,000 square foot studio where I still wonder, I'm like, is all this necessary? And you'll kind of hear a little bit more in my story today. I'm very excited to have you, and I'm excited to share, kind of give you a behind the scenes and an update of where I'm at with the business, because we're going through some changes and we're in the middle of it. So this is an interesting time for me to be recording this episode, and grateful to have you. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. I have a workshop that I put together that I call the 6-Figure Filmmaker Workshop, and in it, I kind of lay out my best practices, the biggest things that I've learned over the last 18 years of running a corporate video production business. I jam-packed it into this workshop. It is free, and I would invite you to go watch that. There are, I think, some things that you can take away from there. So it's not fluff. It's actually like, hey, these are very actionable. These are things to consider if you want to build a business that is sustainable and scalable in you're doing video production. So you can get access to that workshop by going to studiosherpas.com/workshop. So go grab that, and it's my gift to you. I hope you get something out of it, and I hope that you can learn from some of the mistakes that I've made, and also from this, I've done some things well over the last 18 years. Hopefully, geez, oh Pete's, otherwise, what am I doing? One of my favorite phrases, it's the only thing written on the whiteboard in my office at the studio. It says, momentum is messy. And that phrase has taken on a whole bunch of different meanings over the past, when did I write that? Maybe probably about a year ago. It's taken on a lot of different definitions. It means something different. It means something quite different to me today than when I first wrote that. In the 18 years of me running my business, I've had multiple employees who have worked for me and with me for lots and lots of years. And if you've been around for a little while, you probably heard my story a couple of years ago. My longest standing employee of 10 years, he was our creative director, John. He came to me, it was a couple of months after things started to slowly pick up after COVID. We were just getting back into the office, and he said, hey, I really want to just do this thing on my own. I want to take a stab at starting my own business. And he left, and I blessed him and was excited for him, but just sad, because 10 years is a super long time. Our kids are friends, our wives, like we've just known each other for a really long time. And it was a sad kind of moment, but also it presented an opportunity for me and for the business. And it presented an opportunity for me to think, like, what do I really want out of this business? And do I replace John? And how do I replace John if I was to replace him? Or, should we do business differently? And things are different post-COVID. And so, there was a lot of, I think, momentum then. There was a stoppage or what it felt like in the moment, a stoppage of momentum, and then a pivot. And I know that word definitely got overused over COVID, but that's literally what had to happen, because our small team looked quite different after John left. And then fast forward to, 3 months ago, my next longest standing employee of 9 years, Grant, comes into my office and he says, hey, it's time for me to move on. I'm going to start a business. And he kind of lays this whole thing out of what he's up to and what he wants to do. And I'm just like, dude, like, this is like the best reason to leave and to start your own business. And I was just like, I can't even, like, I don't even want to try to get you to stay as much as I love you and, love his family and all, he's just like, he's just been an integral part of all of the things. I'm like, I can't. I'd be remiss to not offer you something, but it would be silly because you really feel this calling to do this other work. And he essentially wanted to start a business with his brother and his sister to help give his brother and his sister a better life and to create a better life for him too, to create something that he had ownership in. And I was like, man, like what an amazing human. So over the past 3 months, here I am processing and just thinking, what do I want for my business? My 2 longest standing employees. This is a very therapeutic episode for me as well, because I get to think more. And I've thought a lot about this. It's actually the last 2 months that I've been thinking about this, because that's when he came to me to share this. And so let me rewind about a month before this conversation with Grant. Maybe it was 2 months before this conversation with Grant. We had just wrapped a documentary on a basketball coach, retired basketball coach, was second most winningest basketball coach in college in the state of Michigan. Also, the same coach that was responsible for me ending up at the university that I ended up at, not to play basketball, but because I was friends with his son, and through a series of events and an introduction that he made for me to the president of the college, I ended up at that school where I met my wife, and I ended up with my first real job out of college. And that's the same college that I had convinced to buy me a video camera and a computer so that I could start making videos to promote the things that we were doing at this university, because I believed so much in the mission of this place, and it changed my life, and I wanted other people to experience. And it was just this rinky-dinky, small 600 student liberal arts Christian college in the middle, not in the middle of nowhere, but if you blink as you're driving past it on Avon Road, you wouldn't even, you'd miss it. And I wanted to create these videos, and eventually, I'm working at the school in the enrollment department, making videos and doing a lot of other things. And I was like, I just want to do video. And that's when I started my business back in 2004. I left the college and started my business, and that place changed my life. So we create this documentary highlighting this coach who has had a significant impact in my life, who has introduced me to this university that has had a significant impact in my life. And this documentary is beautiful. It's like this 35-minute long piece where we tell Garth's story. We interview like past players and community members and just other people connected to the college and the community. And the piece is awesome. I got to do the interviews. I was like quick to, most of our projects, I'm not tied into the production, but I really wanted to be a part of this. I wanted to do the interviews because these were my past mentors and friends. And we finished the project, and I looked over at Grant. I was like, man, what if this was what if we did these kinds of projects? Because for the last 11 years in our corporate brand, our focus has been brand stories and trying to get to the heart and soul of a brand to tell the story of why this thing exists, why it started, how it's helping its customers. But we haven't had a niche. And I think for me, there's been a struggle. We've had a niche in the brand films, but in industry niche, we haven't had that. And I think for me, I've really struggled for a long time when it comes to, I love marketing and I love creating marketing. I love like building a community of people that are in a specific kind of market or niche. And I believe that every business should have a brand film. So it was really hard to narrow and find a niche. We finished this piece on Garth and on the university. I'm like, man, we should totally, how cool would this be? And Grant's like, yeah. And I'm like, wait, why don't we do this? Why don't we let this be our focus, our niche? And he's like, yeah. And then we're high-fiving, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And as I spent more time after that moment of realizing like this, creating like sport documentaries, I mean, forget about it. Like 30 for 30, like The Last Dance, like I love sports. I love the underdog story. I played baseball and football in high school and growing up, and I just love sports. I love the things, the lessons, the life lessons to learn, and the mentorship and the coaching and the opportunities that people get, and the way that they can work hard and be focused. And there's just so many aspects of that I'm just so drawn to. So to think, what if we created our brand around these kinds of stories, working in higher education, knowing that my own life was changed in this place, and I'm not unique in that. There's so many stories like mine of somebody who, played a sport or got a scholarship at a school, or, just ended up at an institution, and the people, the community, those things help change the trajectory of that person's life. And so I've been able to process over the past few weeks, in a couple of months, few months, whatever, and think like this would be really meaningful work. It's like full circle for me. This is where I started. I started doing video in college, and here I am now wanting to do more of that. And it's taken me a really long time to realize like this, I know the pain points of enrollment. I know the pain points of a small school. I lived it. I wanted so hard to try to convey how important it was for people to consider coming to Rochester University, because the place changed my life. And if it changed my life, it could change your life. This isn't a commercial for Rochester University, by the way. Although I should ask them if they would like to sponsor this episode. I joke. So the epiphanies that have been happening since this moment, it's just been crazy. It's been amazing. It's been super fun. I hired a branding guy who helped us dial in. So essentially what we're going to do, we're creating a subsidiary of Tell Studios. We're creating a Tell Studios company. It's going to have a specific name and a different website, and we're just going to go all in on this niche. So I'll still run the production company, and that will still exist. But when it comes to marketing and where am I going to spend my time, I'm going to spend the majority of my time in this new brand, in this new niche, in the world of higher education, trying to tell similar life transformation stories. I'm on fire. I'm on fire for my business like I haven't been in a super, super long time. I remember when we first worked with the University of Michigan back in 2012. We worked for the business school, then we worked for a number of the other colleges there. And I thought even back then, I was like, man, if we just landed University of Michigan, we could spend, this could be our only client. There were so many schools here and a ton of opportunity for work. I knew it was a good business decision. And then through the years, I revisited that thought. I was like, man, like higher ed, like it's just, you land this one client, you build a good relationship, and you can just kind of hang out there, and it becomes like really easy to find new work or to get referred, because like you build that trust, and it's like low hanging fruit. But not until these past couple of months have I realized the importance of not just a good business idea, because like for me, there's like I'm passionate about business. I think it's super fun. It's super exciting, but a good business idea isn't enough for me to be able to build or to build a business that I want to work in. Building a business, it's like, oh yeah, cool. Like this is a great idea. This could make a lot of money. Let me build that and like maybe try to sell it. But what I wanted to do when I first built this production business was build something that I could spend time in and be a part of. And for the last few years, like in the production business, I've really just been trying to figure out how to create something that's more sustainable and scalable, and how do I get out of the day-to-day, and how do I stop doing all of the things so that my business is built to sell. That's really where I've spent so much of my time. But there have been a handful of times that I've been able to hop into some productions that I've cared about over the past decade that have made me come alive. And this higher education piece, this documentary on the sports or the documentary on the basketball coach, that to me, it was like something happened inside where I was like, if this is all I did, these were the stories that I told, like sign me up. Like this is what I want to do. So I feel like for the first time since when I was a wedding filmmaker, back in 2005, I filmed my first wedding. That felt like, I was like this. I was newly married, and I felt like, my dad had passed away right after our wedding, 2 months after our wedding. And I felt like there was this like, almost like a calling of like, I could create a legacy piece for families on their wedding day. And I want to do that. I want to give them the gift and create it in a way that I wish that I had, right? So maybe an interview before the day of with the parents and them talking about their son or their daughter and how meaningful that could be, and to infuse that into. So when I was doing wedding films, I felt really dialed into that. And then we transitioned over to brand films, and I believed in the work, and I know the power of a brand story and believe that can help a business sell and grow. And so it's really easy for me to sell that. But now, as I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, we could be working in higher education, inspiring people in enrollment, inspiring the people that are in charge of marketing to say, hey, this work that you're doing, this is worth it. Because if it wasn't for the work that you're doing, a guy like me wouldn't be living out my best life, wouldn't be doing this job, wouldn't have these opportunities, wouldn't have met, the woman of my dreams. And it's worth it. So now I'm feeling this whole new feeling that I felt almost out of the gate when I started doing video. It wasn't for 6 months after I started in video that I shot a wedding, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the thing. And then I felt that for a long time. And then as family grew and goals, like revenue goals, and I was like, man, we can't just do weddings. And I also want to try to get some of my Saturdays back. So then the vision grew bigger, and I spent so much time working on the business that I couldn't be in the business. I couldn't go on a production. If I was going on a production, I was like missing out on an opportunity where I could be building out our marketing or be prospecting or just trying to generate more sustainable business. And now, again, I feel like I'm on a mission. I feel like the purpose and the cause of what I want to do, this feels like a calling again. And I don't know where you're at in your business. I don't know if you feel tired. I don't know if you feel uninspired. Maybe you feel overwhelmed because there's just so many things. And I think we can get so far along in our businesses doing all of the business things and then doing all of the production things that we forget what it was like when we first started. When we had this stirring inside of us that did feel like, this is my mission, this is my calling, this is my purpose, this is what I was made to do. We can lose that because we're really busy and we don't have time to reflect like we did. We don't have time to dream like we did when we were thinking like, hey, this is a thing I could do. Hey, I could do this full time, and dreaming and writing notes and creating terrible business plans because I had no idea what I was doing. So maybe you're in a spot where you're just feeling like, man, it's like, it just feels like Groundhog's Day. I'm getting up, I'm doing the same old thing, and it's not even working that well. I think that if you're in that space, I wonder if you've forgotten why you got into this work. And then the other part of that is, I wonder if you were even super clear when you did get into this work, like why was it calling you and what about it lit you up? Because for me, it's always been about stories. It's always been about people. The name of the original company that I launched with was Epic Creative Group. And I was into the what's his name? John Eldridge. I was in all of his books, and I was like, man, like all of our lives are these epic tales that a lot of them don't get told. And a lot of us don't believe that we have these epic stories or that we're living these epic lives. And I'm like, I want to help draw that out of people. I want to help people understand that they have an opportunity to have an impact in this world and to do something great, and to believe that with their whole heart. Because if they don't believe that, then they're going to live like that. And I think that same thing can happen inside of our business that we kind of forget, or we never really put our finger on it other than I really just like making stuff. And that's cool. Like that's inspiring. But I think if you try to uncover those layers, there's probably more than just like making stuff, right? So I would just ask the question, like, think about a recent project or the most recent project that you did that you were lit up. You did the project, you're like, man, there was something different about this project, or this was really exciting. Like, why? Why were you lit up for that project? Or think about a client. Like what's a recent client or just who's your favorite client that you've ever worked with? And why did you like working with that client? Like what about that person or what about that experience made it fun or made it stand out and is making you say like, that's definitely like my favorite client experience. If you feel like this work is your calling, like you're like, I was made to do this and I can't see myself working for somebody else, I can't see myself doing something else. I think the sooner that you can identify what about this work is your calling, the sooner that you can reconnect with your why. And that's where I feel like I'm at. I feel like I'm uncovering my mission. And who knows, in 2 years, in 5 years, I think being a business owner, it's like an onion, and there's like lots of layers. You keep peeling, and it's like, and you think this is it, and it's like, well, if you peel another layer, well, that's pretty good. It's more fresh, it's more moist. I don't know. This is a bad analogy, but there's just a lot to it, and we keep refining, we keep figuring out what we're passionate about, what we're good at, what we should be doing, where we should be spending our time. But spending time trying to understand what about this work gets me so amped up and makes me want to keep doing it. And then if you're not doing those things, like, can you get back there? And I'm so excited today, feeling like, oh man, and you've heard me tell you for so long, hey, you really need to dial in a niche. You've got to dial this thing in. And I felt like we have a niche. Our niche, it's brand stories. It's the actual thing that we're doing. And I wish we could have an industry niche, but I've actually been counseled by people that are like, you don't need an industry niche. And I've got friends who have successful businesses that aren't niche specific. It's like very specific, the product or their deliverable, and it works in all niches. But for me, I think for where I've been hung up in creating content, in showing up online or going to networking meetings or workshops or conferences, I'm like, I just end up going to like the generic things like the Chamber of Commerce, where it's like all the people, all the businesses, or I go to a digital conference and it's all people in the digital space doing all sorts of things. To think now that I'm going to go to a conference where it's all people in higher education that are trying to learn how to tell their story in a better way that's compelling, that's authentic, that's real. Like, if that's the space I'm going to be in, oh man. like for me, it is very clear that if this is a fit. And that's why I want you to kind of reflect on some of the projects that you've done or the people that you've worked with or even the industry that you came from. Like, did you like the industry that you came from before you started doing this work? So is there something there? And I don't even think that when you dial in a niche that you have to do that forever. I think it's really just committing time and resources in one space that you can build some kind of a community, some kind of a network, and test out your offer. Test out your, what kind of value can you bring value to this group? And if it works, if it resonates, if people are saying, dude, this is amazing, and that's lighting you up, like, spend time in that space. And don't worry about not getting hired because you're spending time in this space, not getting hired by one of your other favorite clients because you're in the space. People are drawn to you because you are the brand. And if people like working with you, they may see that you're in a different space now. But trust me, over 18 years, we started really, everybody knew us for the longest time as the wedding film guys. But that didn't stop people from, I had people that said, what you do with your wedding films, I want you to do that for my business. Can you do that? Like, do you guys do that? Oh my gosh, of course we do. So people that want to work with you, they're going to find a way. They're going to connect with you. They're going to reach out. So don't let that be, something that scares you from niching. But I want you to take some time to ask yourself these questions. I want you to feel like this work is your mission. And I've started using these words again, like my purpose and calling. I feel like like I'm on a mission, like I understand my why in this season of life. And knowing that, I mean, I'm on fire right now. I feel like nothing can stop me because I know what my purpose is. I know who my people are. I know where I need to be spending time, and I know what message they need. I know what resonates. I know where they're struggling. This is what happens when you have a niche. You get to know them. And maybe you already do know them because you've already spent time in that space. And when you believe in your cause so much, you're going to attract customers. You're going to attract employees, all who believe in your cause. And when you do that, like, people are going to want to be a part of that. And in that's where you build a loyal following. And you build a loyal following. That's how you ensure sustainability in your business. And that's how you create resilience in your business, even in challenging times. But if you're serving everybody, if you don't really know why, you just love video, all of those things I just said become a big challenge. It becomes a lot harder. If your mission is just as generic as I love video, I love telling stories, whatever kind of stories, I just love it. That's cool. But I hope if that's what you're saying, you're like 2 years or less in this business. If you're 2 years or more in this business and that's still where you're at, man, I'll leave you with this story. For the past 11 years, we've been building this corporate filmmaking business. And years before that, we built our wedding film business. When we were doing the wedding film business, we got referred all the time. And I knew what spaces to hang out. I knew, we were going after high-end brides and grooms. And, just because we knew they would have a lot of money, we'd get to do cool destination stuff. We get to be in beautiful places. It just makes all of the work easier when everything is like so stinking pretty. So I knew, hang out with high-end photographers, hang out with high-end planners, go to high-end venues, meet those people. Anytime the word luxury is attached to weddings, like those are my people. That's where I need to be. I'm creating content. That's who I'm creating it for. It was very easy to create content. It was very easy to know who to network with. And like, I'm spending time in that space. So of course, like, those are the people that were referring me like all the time. And we transitioned to doing corporate films. And I thought that would just carry over. I thought we could create a blog post and people would share it and it would go viral, similar to like how these, wedding trailers were. And it was like crickets. Like nobody cared other than the business we created it for. Nobody else cared about the videos that we were making. And that was very frustrating. But along the way, I'm like, okay, well, I'm like very outgoing. So let me go to networking meetings. Let me hang out at different conferences and meet people. And by meeting people, I'll tell them what I do and they'll be inspired and they'll want to hire us to do a brand film for them. And if not for them, then they'll definitely introduce me to somebody. 11 years of being in that space. And I would meet people and eventually tell them what I do. And most responses, it's like, oh man, that sounds really cool. Sometimes a follow-up of like, what's the coolest, what's the biggest celebrity you ever filmed, or what's the coolest place you've ever gotten to go? Or do you want to make a Hollywood film? I'm always like, no, I don't care about that. And that's about where it would go. And I'm so passionate about storytelling, and I'm so passionate about the power of a brand story and how that can differentiate you in the business world. I'm so passionate about it. And I want other people to say like, yeah, we need one of those. And there were a lot of people that are like, man, that is powerful. And yeah, story is powerful. Cool. Can I have your card? Great. And that's where it would end. I can't really think of an opportunity that came specifically from something like that. 3 months ago, when I start telling people, hey, I think higher education, I think this is our space. Just wrapped this documentary on this basketball coach, and I kind of shared the story that I shared with you. And in the past 3 months, this is unbelievable. In the past 3 months, I mean, the very first two people I shared that with were like, oh, dude, I know the superintendent over here. I know the president over here. I've got this agency over here, and they all work in that space. Let me make an introduction to you. I've had more introductions in the past 3 months than I have in 11 years of me doing this business. It might sound like an exaggeration, but I promise you, because the power of niching, as soon as I was telling people specifically these powerful stories that live inside higher ed institutions. Marrying those two things, that's the only difference to the same story that I've been sharing for the last 11 years. The last 11 years, I've been talking about the power of story and brand films and why you need one. And now I'm like, the power of a brand story paired with a specific place. And so if somebody's connected to that thing, if somebody has a relationship, it's triggered, right? So when I was filming weddings and somebody say, what do you do? I'm like, oh, we create these high-end luxury wedding films. People be like, oh, dude, my, so-and-so is getting married. I should totally, that it happened back then. But there's an 11-year gap of me sharing what we do, who we do it for, businesses, and definitely not getting any like, oh, there's somebody I should introduce you to. None of that. Zero. That's not an exaggeration. But as soon as I start telling people, here's our niche, this is what we're doing, people are able to connect the dots and they're like, oh, those two things. Yeah, I know somebody in that space and that sounds compelling. So not that I haven't been taking my own medicine. I have, but in an even more niche down way, if you will. So my hope for you, if you feel like this work is your calling, my hope for you is that you build systems inside of your business that can help you be sustainable. And I think all of that can work really well if you understand your why and you feel like you're on a mission and you're able to articulate that in some fashion so people can make the connection. Because I want you to be able to do this work, and I want it to mean something to the people you're doing it for, and I want it to mean something for you. Because it's real easy to feel isolated, and it's real easy to feel defeated, and it's real easy to just feel like, what is all of this for? So as I'm refinding my purpose and passion, I hope some of that can spill over into you and inspire you to just dig a little bit deeper and find that thing inside of you that might be reawakened and help you grow your video business. See what I did there? Full circle. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks for letting me share this story. Like I said, I'm super excited for Grant, and it's going to be a completely different business. The next few months are going to be really, really interesting for us. But I know that momentum is messy, and I'm embracing that, and it's okay, and it's all gonna work out. Maybe not exactly how I thought 18 years ago, and that's probably for the better. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this opportunity that I have, and I'm grateful for what we have. Thank you for being here. If you want to know more about Studio Sherpas, the work that I get to do here in the education space, hanging out with corporate commercial filmmakers, you can go to studiosherpas.com. And if you want access to the 6-figure filmmaker workshop, you can go to studiosherpas.com/workshop. That's it, my friend. Thank you so much, and I will see you on the next episode. Bye for now.